Very interesting fight at lightweight between a couple of prospects. We have Serbia's own Uros taking on Aalon Cruz. And listen, I'm sure there's people out there from Serbia that are absolutely going to butcher me on the name pronunciation. I went back and watched all of Uros' fights. Very interesting stuff. So he comes at us from Alaska FC. He had his first 5 fights over there. He debuted at middleweight, had 4 fights at welterweight, and then his last fight over on Contender Series at 155 pounds. He comes into this one at lightweight as well. Every single win's been pretty well a knockout, and that's the thing. I mean, the guy gets it done in a lot of different ways. He's one of those fighters that has a very long stance, and you'll see that. He's going to be one of the bigger lightweights you're ever going to see out there. And oh, by the way, so's Aalon Cruz. Very, very large frames. Both these guys over 6 feet tall. You're going to have a big reach advantage for Aalon Cruz, but the thing is, he rarely ever uses it. That's the trouble. In MMA, we always see the reach stat. I'm guilty of it. You see it up there on the screen in front of you as we bob around between graphics. Hopefully you like the third graphic with the losses in there now. But overall, for Aalon Cruz, doesn't really throw his hands a ton because he almost uses his kicks as a jab, which is strange to say. But he has a very odd stance. It's almost like a Machida if he's going to move forward.
It's like Ryan Hall.
It's kind of like Ryan Hall, too, where he throws a jab and kick. He'll throw it to your head. He'll throw it to your body. Front kick, teep kick. He'll invest in the legs a little bit. He has a nice left high kick as well. And for Uros, the trouble for me is he comes into this fight, and you look at the level of competition that he had with Alaska FC. I've compared Alaska FC to a lot of different things. They're kind of like the WLF wars of, well, that one state that's super north and super west of all the other ones, because you have no idea what you're going to get. WLF wars, who have we gotten out of there? Well, you've had what? Song Yadong that's on this card, and then you've had other fighters that have been just absolutely hot garbage. Like, it's really hard to tell. Level of competition's not all that great. For Uros, if you want to see a really fun fight and some of the dynamic movements that he can do, go back and watch the fight against Alonzo, and this is a tough last name, but Alonzo Leesholm Jr., and he does a crazy Granby roll in that one. But overall, he outmatched his competition big time when he was on the regional scene. And then if you look at his last fight against Mikey Gonzalez was kind of small for the fight, and he moved up a weight class, so they had said on the broadcast. He was a karate guy, so he's spinning a lot of, spinning kicks and missing on them and getting tired, and it just looked like a total mismatch of a fight to me. For Aalon Cruz, the last time we saw him out there, well, he decided, you know what, 155 pounds was cool and everything, and I should probably fight there during my career, which he did in the past. And he was at featherweight, and then he fought Steve Wynn, and he won that fight, and then he was at featherweight, and he fought Spike Carlisle. Hey, big guy, don't fight at featherweight. You're too big for featherweight. He beat Steve Wynn at featherweight, and again, a lot of his fights over his career have been at featherweight, but the trouble is he's way too big for the weight class. Hopefully this helps him out a lot. He was supposed to take on, originally, Steven Peterson last year. Peterson fell out. He gets that Carlisle fight, and his hype train got totally derailed there.
It really did. And Spike Carlisle, he's a wonky fighter. Here's the thing. He could beat a guy in the top 15, maybe, and he could also lose to half the guys running in the UFC.
And you'll probably see him in Bellator next, really.
You probably will, which is wild about Spike Carlisle, because again, you never really know what you're going to get from Carlisle, and that's why I always find it hard to kind of base a prediction off of someone who fought Spike Carlisle. And Aalon Cruz does have other fights to go off of. It's just that one in particular, I always find it difficult, just because, again, Spike Carlisle, is he going to knock you out in the first round, or is he going to get extremely tired and just be real wonky the whole time? For Uros, I think this is going to be an interesting fight for him, and I think this isn't a setup fight for him, but I do think the UFC is more invested in the future of Medic than they are the future of Aalon Cruz. And here's the thing. Coming out from AFC, you can either be Jared Cannonier, fight at a bunch of different weight classes, be amazing. I know he lost to Whitaker, but Whitaker's one of the better fighters in the UFC.
Or Justin Buchholz.
Or it could be Justin Buchholz, Gina Mazzani, we could throw her in there. There's just such a mixed bag coming from that promotion that it really is hard to kind of place their ceiling in. Here's the honest truth. You can say that about any organization outside the UFC.
We saw, again, a guy that was with Fight Night Picks, did an interview with Fight Night Picks not that long ago, Adrian Yanez. He took on an Alaska FC guy that looked great in his fights, and Victor Rodriguez. And then, listen, Yanez is very good. Rodriguez wasn't all that great, but it was the same thing. Like, you watch the fight tape, and it kind of scares you a little bit.
It does a little bit. But here's the thing. In this fight, I don't think Medic is going to face any of those issues that we think might be there in the future. I haven't seen him fight that upper echelon wrestler at 155. He's going to have to do that at some point. This is just a great kind of introduction to the UFC audience. And I know I said it on the first video how, these young fighters, they realize that there is more pressure. For Medic, I think the pressure's there, but the fact that he is fighting someone who stylistically will be in front of him, not to be hit because he can keep the fight at such a range with his kicks that he won't always be so hittable. But if you're Medic, constant pressure will win you this fight eventually. You're not going to get to him after that first punch. You might not hit him on the second punch, but as long as you throw in combination and really make sure that you are dedicated to that third, fourth, fifth strike in your combination, you will eventually get to Aalon Cruz, because for Cruz, he has this terrible habit of backing straight up. He doesn't exit on an angle. And good example, Kevin Kroom when he fought Alex Caceres. Caceres did a great job of not just backing up when he was defending takedowns. He would defend the takedown, dig the underhook, but he would get his back off the cage. He would never just let himself get forced all the way back. For Cruz, it's kind of like that in the striking department, where he will move from side to side, but if you are aggressive enough, he will just concede space and put his back up against the cage.
Now, he's a guy, Aalon Cruz, that was based out of Tampa. He's been an Extreme Couture, and from all accounts, he's been there for a while, training with the likes of the Dan Iges of the world and others, and that's one of those things. You're training with a guy like Ige, you're working your stand-up with like a Maki Pitolo. I think that really bodes well for a fight like this against a guy like Uros Medic that we see when Medic really needs to bring everything together. Again, wrestling's not his super strong suit. He's an all-right grappler. We see him out of Anchorage BJJ, or he's been billed out of there in the past. He's a guy that has a lot of tools. I just need to see them in this one. And again, for Aalon Cruz, and I had mentioned earlier, you know, featherweight, lightweight, whatever, you go back and look at his record. Just about every fight's been at featherweight. So again, I like it at 55. I like it out of Extreme Couture for this one. Just the plot thickens here.
It really does. And last thing on Medic, I don't know if he's going to be in the top 15. I don't know if he's going to be at lightweight for the rest of his career, because you had mentioned it. He's fought from middleweight down. Aalon Cruz is the opposite. He's meeting him at lightweight from featherweight. So I'm not, again, these are two of the bigger guys in the division, although Cruz is moving up, but it will be interesting just to see the physicality of these two and how it does match up. And for Cruz, if he's getting backed up to the cage, great point with the Extreme Couture, he might shoot a takedown. That could be a wrinkle that we're starting to see in Aalon Cruz's fights, because when your back's against the cage, you really only have two choices. You can go left, you can go right, or you're going to have to shoot a takedown to go forward. I'm not saying that's something that we're going to see in this fight of wrestling heavy Aalon Cruz, but it is a wrinkle that he might have added into this game plan, because if you're up against a guy like Medic, standing at distance is not the best way to beat him. You are really going to have to make this an ugly fight throughout. And if Aalon Cruz can make this an ugly fight, I think he'd have a better chance of winning. But the issue is, you can't really clinch your opponent if you're at kicking range. And that's the problem. Cruz doesn't have a get-out-of-jail-free card in this fight. His get-out-of-jail-free card is, well, I can stand at range, I can kick, I can throw combination, I can out-volume you, and I can frustrate you with my speed, and maybe you might walk into a big shot that way. But Medic is such a high-level striker that I really just don't see him getting frustrated throughout this fight.
And that's the thing. I mean, you look at Uros Medic, a guy out of Serbia, training in Anchorage, and then here's the last wrinkle of it. So I talked about Aalon Cruz switched up his camp. He's been with Extreme Couture. Uros Medic hasn't been training at Anchorage BJJ. He's been training at Kings. So he's working with Kelvin Gastelum, Benil Dariush. You see all of these guys in the Instagrams. You see that his manager's Ali Abdelaziz.
Rafael Cordero, though?
You know how things are working out. He's got Rafael Cordero as well. I really like those wrinkles in there for the exact same reasons. If you want to take a guy like Uros Medic and really start to polish him up, like a Giga Chikadze, who's got a big fight coming up here shortly against, who is it?
Cub Swanson.
Cub Swanson. There we go. I was going to say Barboza, but he just had a fight booked as well. For Uros Medic, I like all of those. The other things that I want to talk about, really long stance, that can be tricky against a guy like Cruz. It could also work to your benefit because, again, with Cruz, if you're a guy that's coming in square in front of him, well, he throws those teep kicks, he throws those front kicks, so he can really kind of work the distance and really discourage you from moving forward. But with Medic, if he's walking in with a really long stance, if he's throwing kicks of his own, it could work out well for him too. And the other thing, he has half-decent boxing, but the one thing that I love out of Uros Medic, there's one other fighter on this card that I think does an excellent job because he's a champion, Petr Yan. What does Petr Yan do very, very well? When he gets somebody hurt or when he goes to throw a combination, he'll work his hands and he'll either end with a hook to the body or normally it's a kick to the body. For Uros Medic, he does the same thing. Not as fast, but he does do the same thing where if he gets you hurt or if he's really starting to land well and starting to flow, he'll start to invest in the body to slow down his opponent. We saw Aalon Cruz where he got finished by Carlisle. It was just kind of quick and it was pretty much over. Carlisle was on top hammering away after he really hit him heavy. For Medic, if this is going to be a long, drawn-out fight, there's a lot of wrinkles in there that I like for the Serbian fighter here.
I couldn't agree more. I think this is a phenomenal fight. And really, the winner of this should get... Again, it's hard to say, especially in lightweight, but the winner of this should get one of those, like, kind of veterans who are on their way out. That would be ideal, especially...
Nick Lentz.
Yeah, like a Nick... Oh, he's retired, so probably not a good idea, but maybe, like, you know...
Jim Miller.
Yeah, like Jim Miller's the name that always comes up, or a Clay Guida-esque, because I really do think for Medic... when we talk about prospects who have really high ceilings, and when you mention the body shot, who else does that almost to perfection? Elliott. We talk about him probably more than anyone else, mainly because with his boxing style in MMA, yes, he's great at wrestling, yes, he is the total package, he goes through the body, and he will seek it out too. And if you're a guy who can get tired in a fight, those body shots are your worst nightmare. They're basically your kryptonite. So I really like Medic in this fight, and I'd love to see just where he is going to be at lightweight, and really if he's even going to stay at lightweight throughout his career.
I was surprised by the odds, Matt, because for Medic, he opened up a plus 105 underdog. He's now at a minus 171, one of the bigger movers and shakers this week. For Aalon Cruz, open to minus 125. Now at a plus 141. Let's look at the Tapology votes. Holy smokes. 1,265 total votes, 90% Medic, and 74% by knockout. And if you're wondering, hey guys, you look too much into the Tapology votes, this, that, and the other thing. We don't look before the videos now, so it's as big of a surprise to you as it is to me. I'm sticking with Medic here. I mean, I tipped my hand a little early. Again, I like Cruz out of Extreme Couture. Maybe if he starts to work in a little bit of the wrestling, I think he could have success. That's the thing. To beat Medic, there's ways to do it. You got to be a fairly good wrestler, a fairly good grappler. And once Medic faces that, he's probably going to have a really hard time. Maybe Cruz hits him with something crazy like he did in that Wynn fight. I mean, against Stephen Wynn, listen, Steven was pressing forward, throwing the hands. He was really landing well. And then right at the end, Cruz threw an awesome, awesome strike that really just kind of made it night-night. So I still like this for Medic. There's definitely an opportunity for Cruz, but I really do like Medic in this one.
Listen, when I saw the odds had Medic as the underdog to begin with, now he's almost a 2-1 favorite. The odds are kind of trending in that direction. I thought the Tapology picks would be pretty close. I thought there'd be a lot of people out there who'd be like, hey, Cruz is a pretty good chance. And I thought they'd be about 60-40. I did not think that they'd be 90-10, and especially with the majority coming by TKO. I like Medic in this fight. I really do think he has a high ceiling in the division. I think he's going to be, at the worst case scenario for Medic in his UFC career, he will be one of those entertaining guys you can throw on a prelim who, no matter who he's matched up against, he's going to go out there and have a fun fight. So I'm really excited for this one, but I agree. I've also got Medic.
Maybe Uros Medic is going to become the lightweight Dana Rodriguez. Who knows? I'm really looking forward to this fight. We both have Serbia's own Uros Medic to get the win. It should be a great one. We've got a great card. 3 title fights at the top. Nunes Anderson. You got Jan taking on Sterling. And in the main event, holy smokes, Jan Blachowicz defending against the middleweight champ, Israel Adesanya. So it should be a great card, a great night of fights. Make sure you keep it locked in with Fighting Picks, Matt. As we always say,
let's get into it.